Welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week, we are previewing Season 5.
We're back, baby.
Yes, we're back. Most of the cast is back.
Most of them.
Some of the writers are back.
This is the final year of the early years.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Which, Gary, it begs the question. Probably, I've been prepping all summer for this.
For this question?
No, well, Season 5. But I've got to ask. When some idiot asked you many years ago, hey, man, let's do a podcast of the first 5 seasons of SNL.
Yeah.
What was the percent? How much did you think you'd make it till Season 5?
I thought I would make it through to Season 5.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. In all fairness, my wife said, oh, you guys are starting Season 5? I said, yeah. And she's like, then what? And I was like, let's get through this first. I said, then my contract is up. I don't know what's up after that.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. So this is it. I mean, this is the last season of the early years.
This is it. Yeah.
I am looking forward to this season less than I have any of the others.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
Because I got to say, you know what? I have been enjoying the vintage episodes this summer, and it's reminded me of just how much we've enjoyed the show and the process of the show. And it actually has made me excited somewhat to get into Season 5, because we're going to finish the journey. And I'm actually want to go into it with fresh eyes and optimistic. So I'm actually excited. I'm excited for Season 5.
Oh, okay, good.
To bring it to an end.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm also excited to bring it to an end. But I think we're talking about two different things here.
Maybe.
So Season 5 begins with some of the biggest changes so far in the show. John and Dan do not return for Season 5.
No, and it was, as we had discussed at the end of Season 4, it's kind of already a foregone conclusion. John wasn't coming back. I think he made a comment at some point. It was, like the 5th year of college. Like, what's the point of coming back? So everyone kind of knew John was, ever since Animal House, John was out the door.
Right.
But Dan, I think, is the one that really, really hurts the show and Lorne, and just losing Dan, I think, is the thing no one was really ready for. And especially watching all these episodes so close together for the first 4 seasons, that it's even more evident to see, I feel like.
Totally.
The absence of Dan and what that's going to mean to this show this season.
Yeah. Really, the loss of Dan, I believe, only benefits one person, and that's it.
I don't know who. Who's going to benefit?
Peter Aykroyd.
Okay. All right, then.
Yeah, it is a big loss. That's part of the reason why I'm not terribly excited about Season 5, to be honest with you. I think that, especially in Season 4, when I felt like Dan came back to being the MVP and kind of really being probably the most important player in Season 4, for him not to return now feels like a big loss.
Yeah, especially the show of what it is. The show is the show. Catchphrases and stars. And I think in Susan Morrison's book, she calls it was the collective cultural property. Like, the audience has taken over the show at this point.
Right. Something
that will never change. Like, for the next 46 or whatever odd years, like, the show is not owned by the show anymore. The show is owned by the fans. The fans, like knuckleheads like us doing podcasts about it. Like, they've just, the show has gotten bigger than the show at this point. And then to lose such an integral part at this point is rough for everybody.
For everybody. Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of what makes it so rough is that they weren't prepared for this until very late in the summer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they thought Dan was coming back. Dan had the intention of coming back.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of at the last minute that he tells Lorne, you know what? I've still got so much work to do on the Blues Brothers. There's so many other things going on. I'm not going to come back.
There's a point in the Hill Weingrad book where they say Dan coming back to the show was the reason Lorne came back to the show. Remember, Jeff always said, like, every season Lorne was like, I'm done, I'm not coming back. And
right.
They write in their book, the main reason Lorne came back was that Dan said he was coming back.
Right.
And so he had faith in the show for one more season. And then I think it was in September, Dan, Lorne gets a message, Dan wants to see him. And Dan basically says, I can't do it. I can't come back. I've got the show. I'm going to leave. And so now they're like, what do we do? And as we talked about on our Guild Alive episode, like Lorne is entrenched in Guild Alive at this point. So now he's trying to run a Broadway show and put a movie together as well as salvage the TV show. And there's just too many things going on right now.
Too many moving parts.
And that's just him. I mean, then, you get to the cast in general. Like, I think everybody but Garrett at this point had movie offers and are shooting movies and doing things. Bill and Gilda and Lorraine. It's just like you're losing everybody. When the show started, everybody was about the show. They lived and breathed and died the show. And now I think Alan Zweibel wrote in his book was now everyone's looking for the next thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because even before losing John and Dan, or at least before losing Dan, everybody was on 5-year contracts. So going into this season, it wasn't known what would happen after this season. Like, this could have been the end going into it, with everything being as positive or as good as it could have been. And then you take Dan out and everyone's going crazy. It's just, you're just entering the season in such an uncertainty.
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, and a big reason why everyone's pursuing the films and everything is money.
Yeah.
Right. Like, they're not making a ton of money on this show, and that's their chance to cash in.
Right.
And you can't blame them.
No, they're their own stars. I mean, this was the time when like everyone started having assistants and assistants to the assistants and, doing their own schedules. And Bill was doing Caddyshack and Gilda did Gilda Live and Lorraine's doing movies. And so everyone's doing things, other things. And even the writers are trying to get stuff on the air so they can like have a calling card to then do something else when the show ends, because they don't know what's going to happen come May,
Right. One of the reasons that Dan was able to tell Lorne so late was because they started the season late because they were doing all of these things, mainly because Lorne and much of the cast and crew were doing Guild Alive at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the season doesn't start until October, I believe. And that gives a little more time for Dan to kind of decide that he's not going to do it, but it leaves Lorne in the lurch because he's down 2 people. So he's only got 5 cast members, and they've got to figure out what to do there.
And I think at one point, Lorne wanted to delay the start even more because of this, because of all this uncertainty. And NBC, as we've been saying, was in such dire straits. They're like, no, you need to go on the air. Yeah. So I think he wanted to give me some time. Let me put some stuff together.
Well, they didn't give him time.
Nope.
And they didn't go out and hire 2 new actors to replace John and Dan, which I think is smart. But they did go out and hire Harry Shearer.
Which is interesting. Yeah. I mean, he had been a writer and he was a known commodity at this point. And I think he was actually offered a writing job a couple years earlier, but wanted to be a performer and was brought in, recommended by Franken and Davis, and hired very short, I think, end of August or early September. I think he met Lorne during one of the rehearsals of the Guild Alive at the Winter Garden.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was very odd. He tried to do, I think, something very similar to when Bill replaced Chevy, where, it wasn't announced at the start of the season. He's not listed in episode 1 because they didn't want to make it as if this is the guy replacing Dan and Bill, because you're not going to replace Dan and John, So it's like they tried to slow roll him in. And I think as the season went on and a few episodes in, they realized they couldn't do that. So they had to showcase him and get him in there more. But yeah, no, I mean, you get Harry Shearer and the creation of what we now know as featured players. Now we have featured players on the show. And
we have a lot of featured players throughout the season.
And I mean, good luck keeping track of who starts when and ends when, because somebody's on for 4 weeks and 2 weeks. A couple of them are on for literally one show as a featured player.
One show, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Harry Shearer starts as a featured player.
Right.
I guess the second episode, really. Mm-hmm. He kind of starts as a featured player, and then in the middle of the season, he gets promoted up to the repertory company. What's interesting too about Harry Shearer, just to say on him for a minute, is he grew up in show business. He had been acting since he was a kid and did stuff with Jack Benny. He was the original. I didn't know this until I started doing research. He was the original Eddie Haskell in the Leave It to Beaver pilot.
No shit.
Yeah. It wasn't, I guess the character wasn't called Eddie Haskell, but it was the Eddie Haskell character played by Harry Shearer. And then he and his parents decided, this is how it goes anyway. that they didn't want him to be on a full-time series like that. They wanted him to be in school and just act more part-time. That's crazy.
Oh, that's funny.
And someone else who kind of was a mentor to him as he was growing up, Mel Blanc, the voice of Bugs Bunny and all of those Warner Brothers characters, because they both worked on the Jack Benny show. It's crazy.
The whole Harry Shearer thing was like just never a good match from the start. It was like, the way he was brought in and how he was going to be introduced, I guess in classic Lorne fashion, it was never really announced. So everybody on the show thought this was some writer who like wanted to be more. And Harry thought I'm supposed to be a performer, but I'm not getting it. So it's, it's just all that just nonsense of the show is so prevalent here.
He also was 35 years old when he was hired.
That's what I'm saying. He's been around. Yeah, he had been around.
Yeah, he's just older than most of the cast still at this point.
Had been in the credibility gap for a while at this point. I think this ended the credibility gap, actually, was him being on the show or coming on the show.
I think it was Lenny and Squiggy going on Laverne and Shirley was actually what ended the credibility gap. But it was right after, right before this. Yeah. Yeah, so he's the big kind of on-air replacement.
Definitely.
Like we said.
Definitely, yeah.
But a lot of our favorites, including Dweeb gets one or two episodes as a featured player.
I think he's a one. Yeah.
Schiller gets one.
Paul Schaefer, Jim Downey, Don Novello, Brian Dole Murray.
Yeah.
New writer Peter Aykroyd, as you mentioned.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Franken and Davis finally get like a full credit. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. If you were in 8H, at some point you got a featured player credit this season.
Well, unless you're Ann Beats.
Oh, shit. Fair point. Fair point. They did hire a female writer finally. Give them credit.
Yes.
Sarah Paley came on. She's written for the New York Times, and they got a female writer on, as well as who else they get? Gamble and Prost came on, former Lampoon guys.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of writers this season.
They do. Matt Newman joined.
Matt Newman, Tom Gamil, Max Prost, you said.
Who I know from Seinfeld. They would go on and do Seinfeld, so I know their names most from Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. They worked with Larry Charles there. Check out the Larry Charles interview on our friend Ian from Eglich's podcast, Ian Talks Comedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. So there's a lot of writers, a lot of new faces there. Some don't come back. So Walter Williams isn't back as a writer, even though he does do Mr. Bill this season.
Mm-hmm.
Brian McConaughey's not back.
Right.
Who else isn't back? Maybe that's it. I mean, Dan, like losing Dan as a writer is a big one. Yeah. So there are a lot of changes, throughout the show, throughout the cast and writers this season going into it.
And you mentioned cast and writers. I feel like this is kind of the first season when you read about it or learn about it where there was a really big separation between cast and writers. Maybe season 4, not so much, but there was always this kind of like community of like a group effort. And this feels like the first season where there was the cast and there was the writers and there was a dividing line, you know what I mean? Of like,
right,
we're the stars, we're the cast, you're the writers, you service us kind of a thing happening.
Well, this is the first season where none of the cast are writing, right?
Yeah. I mean, at least not credited. Yeah, you're right.
Which is interesting. And that totally, I'm sure, adds to what you're saying.
I mean, speaking of interesting, this is the first season where they ended up doing this thing called a summer retreat. I think we talked about this a little bit, the Go to Live episode where for whatever reasons, they felt it necessary before the season started to take the cast and writers and new writers and whatnot and go to upstate New York into the mountains and just have like a retreat with everybody as you would do in like any kind of normal business. I think it was like for like 2 weeks before the first show, and cast and writers and key crew members, creative members of the staff would go up, and it was interesting. Just like everyone's trying to feel each other out, and Lorne shuttling back and forth from Go to Live in a limo back and forth to like oversee this retreat. And he had a good line. I think, again, it was in Susan Morrison's book where he talks to all the new people and he says, please don't do cocaine. It doesn't make you funnier. It only makes you think you're funnier. Which I did like.
Can't that be said about most drugs?
Yeah, I don't know. We started this podcast talking about John and Dan leaving. I don't think the show ever got out of that shadow. They've always been very meta, very self-reflective, and I think the whole season they chose to not cut the cord and be new. They would harp on it, and look back on it and call upon it.
Right.
I think, the Christmas card that they sent out that year was the original cast.
Yeah.
With like ghostly specters of Dan and John and Chevy above them. And, they just kind of never got away from who they used to be. That behind the scenes drama lingered because the drama this year was they weren't here anymore.
Yeah. Well, you're only a cast of 7. And when you lose 2 of them, that's a lot of weight you're putting on the remaining 5.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of work to do for those 5. And even though you pepper in featured players and then bring Harry Shearer on as a full-time cast member eventually, like there's a lot there that I don't think you don't appreciate until you start to watch these more closely and more closer together. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the season.
Yeah. Especially remaining 1. I mean, Bill Murray is like poised, when Dan and John are gone, obviously all eyes are on Bill. And I mean, Bill was pissed because he thought he got left like in the lurch. It's like, now you're leaving me to be the guy.
Right.
And it's funny because he kind of takes the John mantle of like, I am the star and I'm going to bitch and I'm going to threaten to quit and I'm going to throw fits. And, he just came off of shooting Where the Buffalo Roam. So he kind of came in with this like Hunter S. Thompson mentality of how he's going to run things. Right. Like no one's going to stop him because he's like, what are you going to do? Like you already lost Dan and John. I'm not going you're not going to lose me. So like, it's like he takes over that role, which no one needed.
So then, Brad, 20 episodes looking ahead. Which hosts are you looking forward to the most this season?
I mean, it's funny. It's almost like they kind of, I will say they do a very good job of trying to sell the ticket, getting hosts, getting musical guests. So it's like, you want to see Steve do 2 more runs. You want to see Buck Henry do a couple more runs. Elliot Gould comes back. Eric Idle. I mean, there's a lot of great hosts that show up. B. Arthur.
Yeah.
Burt Reynolds. I mean,
Burt Reynolds is a superstar at this point, and they get him.
That's what I'm saying. They're starting to pull that in. They're like, let's get the superstars in. Let's get the big celebrities in to do the show, which I always like. So I'm like, let's see it.
Martin Sheen.
Sheen's in. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is in.
Yeah.
Chevy comes back. I mean, it's
Bob Newhart.
That's a good one. That'd probably be the biggest one I'd want to see this season is a Bob Newhart on SNL because, we've seen Steve Martin and Elliot Gould and Buck Henry. Bob Newhart's probably the biggest new person I want to see this season. Yeah.
I think Bob Newhart is the one I'm most excited for. I'm also very excited for Terry Garr. I really like Terry Garr. I think she's really funny, especially in Young Frankenstein.
Thought you were going to say Howard Hesseman.
Yeah, I like Howard Hesseman too.
I know you're
Ted Knight.
I know you're a big head of the Ted Knight, please, sir. Come on.
Monroe.
I was going to quote Caddyshack, but sure.
Oh, I also liked him from the Justice League. Meanwhile, yeah. And I'm even more excited. I think there are a ton of amazing hosts this season. I'm even more excited for the musical guests. This season's musical guests, I think, are some of the best in the first 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, they started doing it last season, but I agree. You got Bob Dylan. I mean, granted, it's Christian Bob Dylan, but Bob Dylan, Blondie, Tom Petty, B-52s, Sam and Dave, Paul McCartney, of course. You finally get your Beatle on. So, yeah, George
David
Harrison. Bowie, oh, God, of course.
Like the Bowie performances, the B-52s performance, they're both iconic performances.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. The Grateful Dead come back.
Yeah, there's good stuff in here. Like I said, I'm excited to watch the season and not hold it in a bitter downward spiral season 5 end of the run thing and try to go in with it with fresh eyes and be like, let's just enjoy it and see what they got. And who knows?
Yeah.
Because the show, it's at a tough point, I think it's hard to remember or realize like what they did from 1975 to 1979, like how high they went, how quick. It's nuts.
Now this is kind of the aftermath.
Yeah,
you're on the downslope, really.
And I mean, we joke and tease about Lorne, but we got to say, like, this is a guy who like created this show to own and run this show, and the show is kind of outgrown him at this point because there was no blueprint for it. So like I said earlier, like everybody joined and it was like this summer camp feel of we're all in here together and we're all doing stuff just to make us laugh. And you're only 4 years removed from starting that.
Right.
And now you have people making millions of dollars and starring in Hollywood movies. And so this thing that he had created with some help, but that basically, he created
some help
is out of his control. Like, no, I'm just saying like it's always has been and is his show. And now stars are leaving. The people on the show are bigger than the show. Like that was never the idea. The idea was it was always the sum of the parts, create. And now your individual parts are greater than the show itself. Yeah. What like Fridays comes out this year. We should talk about that. I mean, we should take a minute. Bernie Brillstein is probably one of the most important factors of SNL having so many problems this season. One, he's the man behind the Blues Brothers and getting John and Dan the Blues Brothers in the movie.
Right.
And then two of his clients go ahead and produce Fridays this year, a direct competition to SNL. So here's the guy that like was fathering Lorne and shepherding him through all of this. And now you're at season 5 and he's the two biggest things you have against your show are because of Bernie Brillstein.
He's a genius.
I mean, he's the reason you've lost John, and he's ultimately the reason that pushed Dan out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to pin it on him, sure.
I'm just trying to find ways to not defend, I guess, but just...
No, that's exactly what you're doing.
It's easy to knock the show, and I'm trying to go into season 5 not easily knocking it and giving it a fighting chance. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see all of these hosts and musical guests and to see what they have for us, because I think having so many writers on screen, how will that affect them and what they're writing and what they're like, because it's not just Franken and Davis anymore getting screen time.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious to see how that plays into things and to see how Bill and Gilda and Jane and Lorraine and Garrett deal with all of this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's all about the cast. Cast is interesting. Gilda had Gilda Live, and we've talked about how that movie did. And Garrett and Lorraine are having their own issues this season, of course, that they've been dealing with. And I think Jane is the only one who comes out unscathed this season. Finally see her shine a little bit. She gets some recurring characters a little here and there. And
how great is Jane?
Maybe our saving call this year.
That better be. Well, it'll be fun going through season 5. We've got all the episodes coming up.
Oh, we should say, like, again, as I joked at the top of the season, but I mean, we have made it through season 5, and that's for everybody listening. So thank you all for listening and hang with us.
We made it to season 5. We haven't made it through yet. Let's wait.
Please take the over, and it should be fun. We're gonna have fun this season. My goal is to have fun.
We are. We're going to have some of our favorite guests back on with us on the podcast, too. Thomas Senna is going to join us. Ian Vermeglich, the aforementioned.
Oh, shit. I didn't tell you. Bill's coming on.
Oh, yeah?
So, yes, I remember season 2 was like, oh, Bill Murray's going to be on. Scheduling didn't work. And then finally, I was like, listen, man, we're doing season 5. We need your help.
Yeah.
We're kind of like playing this whole thing up like you were left to like carry the reins. Would you come on one episode and talk to us? And he said yes. So I think probably in the second half of the season, we're going to get Bill Murray on. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. And that's like our saving grace this season.
I'm just as excited for Bill Kenny, friend of the pod. Bill Kenny definitely coming on.
Bill Kenny will definitely be on. Thomas Senna will definitely be on. Probably twice.
The great Andy Hoagland.
Of course. The legendary Andy Hoagland.
Legendary.
From the legendary SNL review, Andy Hoagland will be with us this season. We'll find some other folks.
It'll be fun.
It will. It's going to be a good time.
And we're kicking things off next week. We're talking about season 5, episode 1 with host Steve Martin.
There you go.
And musical guest Blondie.
What can go wrong?
Ooh, I'm not sure. It's a good way to kick off the 5th season.
Oh, yeah.
Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. Look for us on social media everywhere at NR4PT Project. And please drop us a line to let us know what you think of the shows, and frankly, because we're kind of lonely, at nr4ptproject@gmail.com. The Not Ready for Primetime Project team includes Brad Robinson and Gary Seath, occasionally hosted by Thomas Senna. Our announcer is Jason Taylor, who is not doing his job announcing these end credits. Edited by Topher Bagley, and the original music by Jacob Spiewak. Please remember to rate and review wherever you watch and or listen to the show. Thanks for listening. Good night, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Brad, why do you do this? Do you do this to hurt us?